Destination Medicine is a collaborative initiative of regional training hubs. With first-hand lessons learned from those who have gone before, this podcast is designed to assist and inspire anyone interested in pursuing a medical career in rural and regional Australia. Welcome to Destination Medicine. I'm Peter Lance. Raised in Somerset on Tasmania's northwest coast, Dr. Morgan Neasey knew from age 13 that she wanted to become a doctor. There were no doctors or medical specialists in her family. In fact, Morgan was the first in her family to get into university. It was surf lifesaving, first aid, and a strong sense of community that sparked her early passion for health and leadership. And that drive carried her through setbacks, including missing out on direct entry into medicine. But Morgan pushed ahead and found another way to eventually get in. Now she's an unaccredited orthopaedic registrar at Northwest Regional Hospital in Burnie, Tasmania, home where she's always dreamed of returning to, giving back to the community that raised her. She's not only a strong advocate for rural internships, but for women in orthopaedics too, and expanding local training pathways. She's won Tasmanian Junior Doctor of the Year and contributes actively to medical education statewide. Through grit, mentorship and the extraordinary hands-on opportunities available in rural Tasmania, Morgan is building her career and loving every minute of it. She starts by telling Nicole Goodman about herself and her career journey so far.
Going back to the start, I grew up in northwest rural Tasmania. Didn't really have necessarily access to a lot of university pathways from where I grew up. So I went to public schools. I then went to Monash University in Melbourne, and I did my undergrad of biomedical science. And from there, I got into postgrad medicine, and I moved to Wollongong and did postgrad medicine there. And then I graduated medicine and moved back to Burnie and started my internship in Burnie Northwest Regional and did my PGY 2 resident year there as well, and then moved on and did my PGY 3 year, of which I stepped up to a role of an unaccredited orthopaedic registrar. And then from there, next year I'm moving through to Launceston General Hospital in Tassie as an orthopaedic registrar as well.
Tell me, when did you realise that you wanted to study medicine?
I think going back, I was around 12 or 13, and I genuinely remember the moment that I decided I wanted to be a doctor. And I was walking along the river by my house in Somerset, and I was thinking of all of the things that I wanted to do in my life, and those things encompassed health, sport, first aid, and particularly leadership, and then the subjects and other things I was interested in, including biology and sports science. And I remember thinking, what encompasses all of these things? And I thought to myself, why don't I just become a doctor? That sounds great.
Yeah, sure. Easy.
Yeah. So I think from there, I was just inspired by surf club. So I grew up in the Somerset Surf Life Saving Club, competing and then also going through with leadership and first aid. And I learnt CPR, did my bronze medallion. And then from there at school, I was enjoying those subjects of sports science. And then I realised that medicine encompassed all of that together. And I didn't necessarily come from a family where I knew any doctors. Neither of my parents went to university or had secondary education. Same thing as my close friends and their parents and immediate family. So I grew up not really knowing a single doctor or how to become a doctor. Then I just looked it up on my own and decided, okay, well, I need to get some good grades and apply to medicine, and then applied to UTAS down in Hobart, and I got my ATAR results, and I was very excited about that. And then I didn't go very well in the UMAT, which was another test that was brought in to gain you entry to medicine in Tasmania. So I kind of pivoted from that and thought, all right, well, I've got to go a different way. So I went to Monash and did biomedical science there. And there they have a direct pathway into medicine, which I also got into, but I also got into Wollongong and I did the GAMSAT, which got me a place there. So then that's how I really ended up doing postgrad medicine in Wollongong in New South Wales.
Amazing. I mean, it's just a picture of focus, determination and clear passion. You're currently working at the Tasmanian Health Service. What led you there?
So I grew up in rural and remote Tassie, and we didn't necessarily have all of the big city things that sometimes make life easier. But instead of that, we got all of the benefits of being in a rural place. My whole family was also here, and it was a hard decision to move back to Tassie. I had a fantastic setup and life in Wollongong, and I really enjoyed it, and it was a really difficult decision, but at the end of the day I always knew I wanted to move back to Burnie and practice rural medicine and give back to the community.
And when you think about your internship and medical training so far, what would you say are the highlights?
Highlight of being at North West Regional Hospital over the last 2.5 years is definitely the people that I work with. Not only the direct doctors that I work with, but also the nursing staff, admin staff, allied health staff. It's really, really great place to work. But I think the number one thing that really sets the Northwest and rural medicine apart is the support that I've had. When I sat down on my first day with one of my mentors now, it was a bit of an intern orientation, and she said, all right, what do you want to do? How can we help? And I said, I want to be an orthopaedic surgeon on the northwest coast of Tasmania. And her response was, great, let's do it. So I think the support from that, and then how many opportunities it's given me, it's led me to so many more mentorship opportunities, applications for awards, leadership roles, conferences. I'm incredibly grateful.
Now tell me, what's been the most challenging then?
Challenging, I think it comes down to not having access to the same things that registrar level doctors have at bigger tertiary centres. It's hard to be what you can't see. So if you don't have direct access to vascular surgeons, you're not seeing what they're doing. You don't necessarily know if that's a career path you want to follow. And that does then limit your opportunities to research and progressing and making those big connections. And that can be really important for particularly surgical specialties where you need to have more exposure to theatre, more exposure to different higher acuity cases. So that's definitely a challenge, but the benefits have definitely outweighed those challenges that have come from being in rural Tasmania.
We'll pick up on those benefits in a minute, but I do want to ask you, moving from medical student to intern, what are some of the differences you've noticed in how you've continued your medical education?
I think I was surprised as a medical student. Again, I went into medicine being completely naive that you finish medical school and you do exams and then you become a doctor. And I knew it was lifelong learning, and I knew that I'd always be following the latest research and be involved and do all of those things. But I don't think I necessarily understood the ongoing amount of exams, self-directed learning, and requirements to continue to move up the career ladder. I think that really forced me to shift to a broader focus of my education and how I was going to keep progressing through my career. And I didn't necessarily realise that I would be doing more and more courses with exams associated with them and greater professional expectations, particularly in ongoing research, that expanding to ethical practice and patient-centred care.
So with all of that in mind, what advice would you give to a medical student considering undertaking a rural internship then?
I think being a rural intern is 100% the best thing you can do as a junior doctor. You're a better intern for practicing in a rural place. You're a better person, in my experience, for practicing in a rural place. And you're a better doctor in the long term for it. There are so many benefits. Even if you don't end up staying in a rural centre, the benefits to me are just, you can't even compare the experience that I've had as a rural intern and resident and to a lot of my friends in big metropolitan centres. I had so much more hands-on experience. I had so many more opportunities to do so many more procedures, and something that I became very proficient in was something that they weren't even exposed to begin with, and the support that I've had as well. So I'm a strong advocate, highly recommend rural internships.
I'm interested, when did you know that this pathway was for you, that orthopaedics was the pathway for you? How did you know?
For me, I was someone who really enjoyed lots of different specialties, but orthopaedics was the first rotation that I ever saw in a hospital setting. And it interested me immediately. I thought, this is fantastic. This seems incredible. There's so many amazing things in orthopaedics. But then I thought, I'll think the same when I go on to other rotations. And I did. I went through lots of different rotations thinking, this is incredible. I can see myself doing this. This is great. But nothing came close to orthopaedics. It was such a standout for me. There were so many things that I loved about it. One of the big factors for me was seeing patients and seeing how I could make the most difference. You can physically fix something which will change someone's quality and outlook on life substantially. Orthopaedics does encompass the best of all worlds. You get to work in theatres, you get to practice surgical skills, you get to be on the wards, you get to be in ED, you get to be a part of a team, and you get to be involved in outpatient clinics and follow patients up over the long term. And all of those factors combined really just sold orthopaedics to me as a career.
You mentioned mentors earlier on. Tell me, who were some of the more significant mentors for you and how have they helped you?
I was so lucky the first day I sat down in Tassie in my first day of my internship to meet Alison Tasker from the PMCT team. And she was the one that said, all right, let's do it, when I said I want to become an orthopaedic consultant on the northwest coast of Tassie. So she's definitely been a mentor and driving force for me. She supported me in so many ways. And then that's moved then on to my two major clinical mentors in Tassie, and that's Mr. Scott Fletcher and Mr. Russell Furzer. And they are my biggest supporters. They've taught me so much about orthopaedics and so much about how to build a rural career as an orthopaedic surgeon. So they're just some of the people that I'm incredibly grateful for and will continue to have in my life as mentors for hopefully the rest of my career. I'm likely going to have many different mentors, and I'm likely going to be a mentor to many people. And I think it's something that's really, really important.
I wonder then, is there a piece of advice that you received during your training that has remained with you?
Yeah, there definitely has been. I remember when I was stepping up from a resident to an unaccredited registrar, and I was quite nervous about that. I didn't necessarily know if I was ready. I'd heard different things from different people who were a couple of years above me about at what point they felt that they were ready. And I was discussing this with one of my other mentors on the ward. I remember saying, I think the biggest step up I'll ever have will be from a resident to a registrar. And he said, Morgan, I completely disagree. You are always going to feel out of your depth no matter where you are, and you just need to have faith and belief in yourself, because you wouldn't be given the opportunity if you weren't ready for it. And it really stuck with me. And now I look back at how much I've learned as an unaccredited orthopaedic registrar over the last year. I absolutely know I was ready. And I think that's the thing. You never think you're ready, but you're given the opportunity when you truly are ready.
Such a good piece of advice. And I've had other people that I've interviewed who've said something very, very similar, where they haven't felt like they're ready, but their mentors have said to them, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in if you weren't ready, or if the people giving you the opportunity didn't believe that
Absolutely.
You were ready. So, it's true. Were there any specific requirements or skills that you needed to apply for your role as an unaccredited registrar?
There were no strict requirements, but definitely things that were encouraged to feel confident in the role. Those things, particular courses, critically ill surgical patient courses, emergency management of severe trauma, and extended ALS skills. But with that, there's some exams, sitting the GSSE and other trauma courses. Beneficial, definitely, to your application, and then how much experience you've had in all surgical specialties and orthopaedics particularly.
And how did you find the application or the selection process for this post?
Yeah, so for orthopaedics in Tasmania, it's matched with the Victorian system. So we go through the PMCV match. Basically what that means is all of the unaccredited posts within both states, you can preference 1 through to around 20 different preferences. And from there you rank which hospital you would go to, 1 through however many you would like. And for me, that was Launceston. I wanted to stay in Tasmania, particularly, stay connected to the rural community, but I needed to move to a bigger centre to continue to learn and be able to bring back the skills.
I mentioned earlier too that we were going to talk more about the positives of living and working rurally. Tell us a little bit about that. What difference in your life does living and working in a rural community make?
I really think it just allows you to be the best version of yourself, not only for being the best doctor that you can possibly be, but being the best for your patients. I have been so lucky and privileged to be able to build so many relationships with patients where I've admitted them the day they've come in. I've been in their operation and then knowing patients throughout their whole care journey and seeing them still when they come into the outpatient department. And I haven't seen them for 4 or 5 months, but they're still going with the physios and still working hard. And it fulfills a real sense of community within me because I know that I'm genuinely giving back and I can see the difference orthopaedic input has had in many of my patients' lives.
And what about personally? What does a rural life offer you outside of work?
It's the whole community outlook and being able to be involved in local sports and then at the same time seeing the 5 people you've just caught up with randomly down in the main street. It's something that's really special and something that I don't think you get in big cities after living in Melbourne and in New South Wales and near Sydney. It's something that I really missed and longed for, and it's so special to me that everyone knows everyone and everyone's here to support everyone, and I think that's the biggest difference.
Tell us a bit about some of the organisations or memberships or networks that have supported you and how have they done that?
So I've been incredibly lucky to be closely linked to the Postgraduate Medical Council of Tasmania, or PMCT. They've been an incredible support to me. It's led me to being nominated not only within the hospital for intern and resident doctor of the year, but then that going to a national level. And that's given me so many opportunities. It basically led me to a conference in Darwin where I was in this pool of all of these amazing junior doctors, and I got speaking to them and learnt that every state in Tasmania had its own junior doctor forum apart from Tasmania. So I had the opportunity to then go back to the team and make a junior doctor forum. And from that, It's then grown, and I've been invited to so many different boards and councils, both within the Commonwealth in Tasmania and the broader Australia. In addition to that, I've also been quite heavily involved with education and teaching with the University of Tasmania, particularly medical students in 3rd, 4th and 5th year. But it's also allowed me to be an honorary academic for UTAS and being able to help international medical graduates through different skills and workshops when they're moving into a new workforce in Tasmania.
Morgan, you mentioned earlier that you are the only person in your family to be involved in medicine. And actually, there's a question on the consent form that asks if you are first in family, and you ticked that. You also ticked women in surgery, in your case, orthopaedics. These are both part of your story. Talk a little bit more about how all of that has influenced your decision to study medicine and the vision that you have for your career.
Yeah, so I feel incredibly privileged to have had the opportunities that I had, being the first person in my family to go through medicine, but now medicine in particular is opening up to students here on the northwest coast of Tassie because they're having the opportunities that I didn't necessarily have access to, and it then allows people that aren't in as privileged of a position to go to medical school, and it makes things so much easier financially and also people not being removed from their rural community in the first place. In terms of being a woman in surgery, and particularly orthopaedics, it's definitely discussed as a minority group. It's not something that's ever really been an issue or a concern of mine. The second orthopaedic surgeon I ever saw in my life and was exposed to was a female orthopaedic surgeon. So for me, in my mind, 50% of orthopaedic surgeons were female. And it was only when I then really discovered and got to know the profession a bit more that I discovered about 6% of orthopaedic surgeons in Australia are female. So that's something that I find exciting and really try and advocate for women in surgery and women in orthopaedics because, like I said before, you often can't be what you can't see. And I want young junior medical doctors and medical students to be able to look at me and go, if she can do it, I can do it too.
Morgan, what advice do you wish you were given as an intern? What was the heads up that would have helped you going into it, do you think?
I think the biggest thing is really acknowledging that internship is so much fun. I had the best time in my internship, the best time in my residency, and now the best time as an unaccredited registrar. And I think that if I went into internship knowing that it's just going to get better and better and better, I would have felt even more supported, knowing that it's going to be okay regardless. All you can do is the best that you can do, and you're going to have people there supporting you. You don't need to worry about the small stuff. You just have to keep the patient at the forefront of your mind. And I think that instills confidence in you, and you just continue to learn and you continue to thrive, and you have a really, really good time doing it. I love my job, and I've loved my job from the day I started doing it, and I just love it more and more each day. And I wish someone told me that, because it's an incredible career, and I think that we should say that more.
Morgan, finally, you've done so much. You've achieved so much so far. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years' time?
I think that's a very exciting question. In 5 years' time, if I break it down to the short term, my immediate goal is to become an accredited orthopaedic registrar. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years, that would be my aim. In 5 years' time, hopefully that will mean that I'm well on my way into my orthopaedic formal training, and that would hopefully be in the combined Tassie-Victoria network, so I can still get some fantastic rural experience, but then also learning at metropolitan centres in Melbourne and give back to the rural Tassie community. Longer term, my number one goal has always been to be an orthopaedic consultant surgeon at the northwest coast of Tassie and giving back to the community that I came from. And I think as I've stepped up in my roles as an intern and a resident, and even throughout my life, if I really reflect on it, I've always longed and really wanted to fulfill a career as a leader in some capacities. There's a lot of other avenues that I'm aiming to go into, in governance and leadership, and also teaching. And I don't know particularly what they're going to look like, but I know that I'm always chasing them, and travel to other underdeveloped countries and contribute to orthopaedic care in places that really, really need it, and do some humanitarian work as well.
Dr. Morgan Neasey, unaccredited orthopaedic registrar at Northwest Regional Hospital, Burnie, Tasmania. This is Destination Medicine. Thanks for listening. Regional training hubs are supported by funding from the Australian Government under the Rural Health Multidisciplinary Training Program.